I often find myself feeling overwhelmed. I often feel like nothing that I ever do will be enough. I'm constantly racing against time. I have anxieties about things that in my brain just feel like they totally could happen, so I should just be worrying about them all the time. And there's so much pain and suffering in the world that I feel so helpless to stop. And sometimes all of that just is so debilitating. So I've realized over time that there are a few things that do really seem to help me with all of that. And I've realized that the connecting point in both of these tools is awe. So the two things that help me are being reminded of like my cosmic insignificance, how huge the universe is, how small we are, can sometimes be really comforting for me. And the other thing, which sounds opposed to this idea, but kind of works really well in tandem with it, is when I focus on how small things can make a difference, it also helps me to just feel better, to feel more optimistic, to feel less overwhelmed. And sometimes it's just someone saying, hey, you said this thing like 2 weeks ago, and it's dug into my brain and I've been thinking about it. And this is what kind of grew from that idea. I think that's so cool. I think it's so interesting how, without meaning to, I've created this ripple through the world in a tiny, tiny way. It's these little things that don't really come from us trying to intentionally change somebody, to intentionally make a change on the world. There's these beautiful little ripples that we can still have in the world. And yeah, these two things sound kind of opposed, right? We're talking about like nothing matters, but also everything matters. Awe is an emotion that we feel basically when we're confronted with the vastness of something that our brain struggles to comprehend. Psychologists Dacher Keltner and Jonathan Haidt proposed that there's two primary components to awe, one being perceived vastness. So this extends beyond literal size and it can include the intricate, the complex, basically just a stimulus that exceeds a person's normal range of experience. And then the second component of awe is that it challenges us to rethink our previously held ideas, or aka also known as a need for accommodation. So this need may or may not be met, but it often prompts us to question or challenge our understanding of the world. So one other thing that has been found consistently with awe is that it actually changes our perception of ourselves. We view ourselves smaller and end up focusing more outwards on other people, our community, things like that. So we actually do change our focus when we are in awe. Awe is an emotion that has been researched more in recent years, and they're finding a lot of positive outcomes, positive relationships associated with awe. A lot of them relating to the things that I have just mentioned that I struggle with. Just a reminder that correlation does not always equal causation, but some studies have showed a more tight caused link, while others do just note a relationship is there. Before we dive too much deeper, I do just want to acknowledge that the research on awe has been pretty centralized to the Western world. There's been some that have looked more globally at awe, but there still is a lot more that I think needs to be looked at to really get a good picture about awe and how it affects all of us. We can feel awe from threats, things that scare us. When we're talking about awe, kind of for the rest of this video, I am talking specifically not about threat-based awe. It seems like threat-based awe is a mix of both fear and awe, so it's not quite as straightforward. So awe has been seen to actually alter the perception of time. So it feels like we actually have more time when we are experiencing awe. Has also been noted to increase the desire to spend time helping other people, and it also seems to make people less materialistic and less money focused. It can increase pro social behaviors. It is also being associated with thinking scientifically and being more kind of science minded. It looks like there may even be a connection between awe and creative thinking and creativity. It's been found that people who score higher on dispositional awe, meaning that they experience awe more, are more likely to be humble and also are less likely to be susceptible to corruption. It also seems to decrease stress and rumination and generally has been shown to have a lot of positive effects. If you've seen my self-compassion video, I've talked about how rad self-compassion is. Self-compassion is a really great tool and can have a whole host of benefits on its own. There were a few studies that were done in China looking at self-compassion and awe. What these studies found was that there is a relationship between awe and self-compassion, that people who experience awe actually can be more self-compassionate. So the benefit of this is for people to get more self-compassion. A lot of the studies previously have been looking at implementing self-compassion practices over a course of time and then evaluating how people rank on things. Now, what this is showing some promise of is giving people benefits of self-compassion while doing something that can be achieved much faster. If someone is desperately needing help, if they're not in a good place mentally, if they don't have the time to build up this self-compassion practice, but they still want the benefits of self-compassion, this awe may actually help. Awe is something that some people may experience more than others, but it is something that I think we can really grow in ourselves. Like, I think we can experience more awe even if we don't already. For myself personally, I would say I've probably been feeling more awe since I started just like being more mindful when I go for walks. There's just so much more that strikes me as awe-inducing when I am paying attention to the world around me. So I don't think it takes a huge shift in your lifestyle. I don't think it takes a huge shift in the things that you're doing as much as it takes a mindset shift and a perspective shift. So I'm going to just chat first about a few of the kind of hints that we can get from people who are in that awe research space. And then I also wanted to reflect on some of the connections that I see with awe. Firstly, there are a few different components on the scale for dispositional awe. On this scale that they use in research, they include these statements that people would have to rank. I often feel awe. I see beauty all around me. I wonder almost every day. I often look for patterns in objects around me. I have many opportunities to see the beauty in nature, and I seek out experiences that challenge my understanding of the world. So these are some hints, right? We can just look more for beauty around us. We can get more curious about the world around us. We can wander more. We can look for things that challenge our understanding of the world. And then there's also 8 kind of sources of awe that Dacher Keltner writes about in his book about awe. And those 8 sources are moral beauty, which is the exceptional virtue, character, and ability of others, basically witnessing other people doing good things. The next top source is nature. I definitely feel awe in nature like all the time. And we have collective movement, so things like dance, sports, religious practices, music, art, spirituality, big ideas. So just like wrapping our head around big concepts can induce awe. And then life and death. So the beginning of life, the end of life. There are also things called awe walks, which are kind of about getting more awe into a thing that you maybe already do, but just shifting your mindset on it and shifting what you're paying attention to. So for me, I think there's a few kind of key factors to awe that I've just kind of come up with from reflecting on this stuff. This is not necessarily stuff that's like been backed up with research, but just from my own reflections and from what I see trend-wise. I think mindfulness and attention is huge. So zooming in and out and just allowing yourself to be present with things, allowing yourself to stop, to slow down, and to really just pay attention to things. If you think hard enough about pretty much anything, it is kind of amazing. What are the odds of everything that is in my life right now being in my life right now? Another thing that I think is really key with awe is discomfort. So I think a lot of the things that we often feel awe with are things that we have to kind of escape our comfort zone for, both in the like chance of experiencing it. So if it's something in nature, maybe you had to leave your house to experience that. If it was seeing moral beauty, seeing somebody do something kind, maybe you have to leave your house to do that. Maybe that is something that you have to escape your little bubble to see. And I think a lot of the more memorable, awe-inducing kind of experiences that I have are things that involve escaping my comfort zone a little bit. So another point for seeking out discomfort, which is something this channel tries to celebrate a lot. Another thing with discomfort is the mental side of awe, where it's like having to rethink things, having to come to terms with that the way you perceived things may not be the only way or the correct way to perceive things, that you might have to rearrange things in your head. And that can be uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable to not know everything, to not understand everything. If we're really not used to that like mental accommodation side, if we're not used to kind of accepting that we may not understand everything, that there may not be a straightforward answer for why something's happened, all of that can be uncomfortable. I think that accepting ambiguity, accepting the mental discomfort is so important. We have people in leadership positions who are willing to do all sorts of mental gymnastics to try to not change their mind. There are people who do not want to accept that they can't control everything and that one person cannot be blamed for the all of what happens in the world. That is terrifying, but I also think it does give some insight into how some people behave. I think there are a lot of people who can't accept that ambiguity, who can't accept complexity, and who probably don't have a very strong relationship with awe. From the things that I've read about awe and what it seems to be related to, I don't see these people having a lot of awe in their lives, really. When you have that mindset that like we are in control, that we are the gods, like I think you lose that sense of awe, and it also is not great for society. It is not great for people in general. Kind of similar to that, I think a huge part of awe for me is about a lack of control and finding a acceptance with that and finding beauty with that. With anxieties that I feel, often those are about like what ifs, like something could happen, and so I'm gonna like have that sitting as a weight in my mind. For me, I guess it's about a way to almost feel control about stuff that you can't control. And with awe, it's kind of like it forces me to think more about what is and what I cannot have any control over. And like, I kind of just have to like relinquish that control, accepting that I can't control things and just letting that be, letting that be as a thing that doesn't hinder me from living. I also think it's really important to give ourselves permission to feel awe. I think especially as adults, sometimes awe slips out of our lives a little bit just because we kind of get caught up in the machine of life, right? We get caught up thinking these are the things we should care about, these are the things we should value, and we don't allow ourselves to shift our attention to these beautiful things that can give us awe. Sometimes it just it feels like all these other things are so urgent, they're so important, and we really do have to shift that attention. I like to share things that I see. Like if I see an animal that I don't always see, I like to let other people know that it's there. And some people are pumped when that happens. Some people love it, and some people just don't care. And sometimes it's just it would take you a few seconds to look at this thing and acknowledge its existence. And some people don't even look. So I had one guy that was walking by me, and it was as I was sitting and watching these herons, and there were 3 herons. I've never seen 3 herons all together. And they were just interacting funny. And I just said it to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I have herons where I'm from." And he was from another province, and it's I also have seen herons before, but I just haven't seen them doing something like that. And I don't know that it is that common to see that many of them, but I don't know. I guess if you've seen one, you've seen them all. And so that's where there's that difference for me about how we approach things, about how we just allowing ourselves to see what is around us. I think sometimes we're just so shut off from it. So we are all living in a world that is out of our control. And that can be scary, it can be uncomfortable, or it can also be relieving, just depending on how you look at it. For me, I'm not perfect with my relationship with awe and ambiguity and all these things that we talked about, but it is something that I am more mindful of and that I'm trying to get better at. We can only try, we can only allow ourselves to be more open to these things. When we shift our focus, when we zoom in or we zoom out, I think we recognize that we are just a part of a much bigger whole. And when we recognize that, I think in ways that is how we extend the lives that we live. With awe, you are looking at yourself as a part of something. You're looking at yourself as kind of smaller, as something that is a part of a whole. And if we look at ourselves kind of more as a piece of the puzzle rather than the whole puzzle, I think that we in some ways can choose to live on in those other pieces. So if we choose to help other people, and those people over time are helping other people, then you've jumped puzzle pieces. You have extended yourself in ways that you cannot understand. You cannot measure those things, but you have kind of extended yourself, your life in a way, so that you're living on in these other places. You're living on in these other people. And I know that's kind of cheesy, maybe that's kind of a lame way of looking at it, but I think there is benefit to that as people, that if we are looking at ourselves as a part of a whole and we see that the things that we do are going to impact things beyond ourselves, maybe that's almost a way of us preventing one death. If the you that is you dies, but there are parts of you that live on in other people, you still are contributing to the world in little ripples. And yeah, you're still going to do that if you choose to live a selfish life and don't care about anything. But I don't think you have that same perspective on it. It's all about what impacts you. There's so much fucked up shit that's happening in the world that I don't know how to help. I don't know how to make a difference in. And I can get very immobilized by that. I can start to feel like nothing I do is worth it, and I can start to feel what's the point in even trying? And for me, awe allows me to accept that I probably won't be able to make a huge change in all of those things, but I can still choose to do what I can to extend myself beyond myself. And again, that may not make the hugest difference. That may not make enough difference. But if we don't try, and if we're just immobilized, we're really not doing any better. So I think awe is it's not a cure-all. I don't think awe is ever going to be the only thing that is needed to help fix a lot of the issues that are going on in the world. But I do think it's a tool. And I think it's a tool that a lot of us can use, and it's low cost, it's really more about our attention than it is about going out and going out on a vacation that you can't afford. It's about just changing that perspective, changing that zoom lens.